from my daughter, just screaming that Imani had been shot.
It looks like an assassination, an execution.
This is in the middle of the afternoon, children were playing football and they all fell to the floor.
That's right off the Richter scale.
You've got a killer on the loose that might strike again.
Many parents are thinking, could this be my child next?
Who would open fire next to a children's playground in broad daylight?
You know, when we're talking about things like revenge, then it becomes a spiral of violence.
It was kind of portrayed that this young black boy had done it and he's got shot.
Headlines which are so far from the facts, it's unbelievable. You have to harvest evidence as quickly as you can. If you miss something in the first few hours at a murder scene, you're never going to retrieve it again.
How can forensics catch the killer?
In North London, emergency services raced to a children's play area following reports of rapid gunfire.
Local residents heard gunshots, had a look outside and saw the prone body of a young man.
22-year-old Imani Muir has been shot close to his home and is in a critical condition.
Imani, unfortunately, was in quite a bad way, by which time his mother had arrived at the scene.
All my grandsons were there, his brothers were there, his dad was there, and watched him trying to save his life. Really, really stressful, heartbreaking.
Really traumatic for the family. It's really important to try and limit who can see what's happening at that scene.
As Imani's mum, Keitha, and dad, Jason, desperately watch paramedics try to save him, police lock down the scene. Shaken witnesses describe the terrifying moment the gunman opened fire.
Bullets ricocheted around the playground and children was in the playing football and they all fell to the floor. So a lot more children could have been hurt as well.
I hate to think what it would have been like had it been school holidays. There would have been utter carnage.
Witnesses describe the shooter as looking angry and holding a black gun. Paramedics find Imani has been shot 4 times, causing catastrophic injuries.
There was a huge amount of blood loss all over the scene.
He died about 30 minutes later. He lost so much blood, he just couldn't be saved.
And all I remember is screaming, I said, is he alive? And she said, no, he's dead. He was a gel to the family, to be honest. Very family-orientated young man.
Imani grew up in the area, where he lived with mum, Keitha, and his 4 younger sisters and brothers.
He adored his mum. Everything was his mum. Mum first, more than anything. Yeah, he loved his mother. And I did see my daughter. It's just the pain and the screams from her. Nobody knew anything because it was like, what's happened? You know, this is in the middle of the afternoon, the children's playground.
With the motive not yet known, police are concerned about what the gunman could do next.
You've got a killer on the loose that might strike again.
That's right off the Richter scale. You have to harvest evidence as quickly as you can. If you miss something in the first few hours at a murder scene, you're never going to retrieve it again.
We try and track where Imani was stood and where he ended up collapsing, and that can be done through blood pattern analysis. He wasn't facing the shooter. He appeared to have been shot whilst trying to get away. This looks like a planned attack. Why was this young man targeted?
A young man shot in broad daylight, that's rare. First thing that goes through your mind, is it a crime that's gone wrong Is it a gangland shooting? Is it a domestic? You've got to have a completely open mind.
It was just a shock, to be honest. I didn't think about it being a grudge. Everyone knew Imani from the area. Everyone loved Imani. Everyone. And everyone had a funny story to tell about Imani. They liked to be in the park, meet his friends, play a bit of football, to hang out.
In the park, CSIs traced the shooter's movements.
If we could find out where someone was stood, that's really great from forensic opportunities, because then we can almost try and recreate the scene. Also then helps with any CCTV footage, because potentially they might be able to work out where they might have escaped to. In an incident like this, we would probably get a ballistic scientist to be able to track exactly where the shots might have been fired from.
You could potentially see where bullets have landed and be able to determine a point of origin as to where they've been fired. We have a whole variety of kit that's available, so we can use lasers for that. We can also use rods. External scenes are more difficult because there's the potential for ricochet. So when we're working back to look at trajectories, it may not be a direct line.
It's a cul-de-sac in essence. There's a children's play area, and just adjacent to that is a caged football pitch with alleyways running both sides of it. So it's quite a compact murder scene.
Ballistics determines the shooter's position was the top of an alleyway, running between the playground and Bride Street.
It's right by Roman Way, which one side of it is Pentonville Prison. There's obviously CCTV from the prison walls and on the estate itself. There may be doorbell cameras, so they're all good places to look for video footage of what may have happened, or even pick up some sound, because as you know, gunshots are not quiet.
Officers go door to door and turn up an early lead. A neighbour's video doorbell has captured audio of the chilling moment the gunman opened fire.
So what you can hear there are 14 rounds being fired off consecutively. That would suggest it's either a semi or a fully automatic weapon.
Heartbreaking. And even now, I can't really talk about Kiefer, because that's very painful for the pain she's going through. But that's what they've put us through. You know?
That's an awful lot of firepower to use. Perpetrator just kept his finger on the trigger. No shout for mercy. It's just pure and utter execution. There is no other way to describe it.
He wanted to make a statement and to demonstrate their power and their might.
Imani was just a 22-year-old young lad going about his own business. So why have they picked on him?
It was just a shock, to be honest. Everything was a shock.
In North London, tributes build at the scene of 22-year-old Imani Alloway-Muir's tragic murder.
Imani was my firstborn grandchild. We were very, very close. He was born special. Keita went into premature labour at 34 weeks. He was this little tiny baby, like, you could hold him here. And then he just grew fatter and fatter. By the time he was 1, he was a tonka. Then he was like 6'2" and really skinny by the time of 22. You know, handsome young man. He was cheeky, a joy, a big joy.
This is a bit of a conundrum. It looks like an assassination, an execution, because that's what it is, but there's no motive.
He was either running away or walking away from the attacker, or actually the attacker was following him, because all his injuries were on the back of his body. The police found it really difficult to be able to identify who the offenders were, because he had nobody that didn't like him. There was nobody in his life that had a grudge against Imani.
In search of answers, detectives retrace Imani's final movements.
Imani was at my house on the Friday. He used to stay over quite a lot. I've got a special needs daughter, so Imani used to come to the house, playing cards and playing games. He used to really enjoy that interaction. He used to play tricks on me all the time and have me screaming and shouting at him. Different just fits of laughter. His last words to me is, "See you later, Nan," shouted up the stairs.
From his grandma's, Imani travelled home, stopping by the park to watch the football.
I don't think he was there 2 minutes before he was killed. The next thing, I get this screaming, horrendous phone call from my daughter.
This wasn't just a random attack on somebody. It was a targeted attack. Why did they want to target him?
At the park, CSIs harvest the evidence. The only traces left behind by the shooter are multiple bullets and casings.
You would collect them using plastic tweezers, because what you don't want is metal to metal markings. And then they're put into polypops to stop any movement from happening in transit, because we want to keep them as they were.
In a shooting crime scene, there's often very little evidence at that scene. The shots have been fired from a distance away. So there's probably not much potential trace evidence on your victim. Knowing what sort of weapon might have been used can be really important, because if we can find the weapon, we might be able to find the offender.
It looks like it's a 9 by 19 millimeter, and you can see the markings S and B, and that will tell you the name of the manufacturer. On cartridge cases, you may also be able to find fingerprints, because obviously somebody has physically picked them up and put them into the weapon.
You have to start thinking like how an offender would. So how a bullet's loaded into a magazine in a gun. Most of the time the bullets are loaded in by pushing the end of the bullet casing. So the best area probably to swab for DNA will be around this ridged area and the actual end of the bullet casing. These areas are not possible to get fingerprints from. You might get fingerprints from like the shaft here, but again, it's quite a small surface. On a bullet casing this size, I would tend to go for DNA swabbing and hope that the shooter or whoever loaded the magazine is on the DNA database.
Testing reveals the shooter is forensically aware and probably wore gloves. But experts are able to identify the make and model of the firearm. It's a 9mm Glock 19 pistol, commonly used by gangs.
We are seeing an increase in gun crime, and we are seeing gang-related incidents occurring in inner cities. And I think, unfortunately, we are going to see more incidents like this in the future.
When you're thinking about particular groups that are involved in criminality, that are trying to protect that territory, they will use any means. Extreme violence is something that they need to do to demonstrate that nobody can't mess with them. That's the message that they want to send.
The big thing for me is the signpost, the motive. And once you know what the signpost is, you're on your way to getting some explanation for what's happened. We'll be looking at the lifestyle of Imani.
Police cordon off Imani's home, looking for any possible connection to the shooter.
Had to go through the whole house, Then they had to come to my house because he'd stayed at my house. And they just would not let Keith enter the property at all to get anything. Keith had just run out, with just a t-shirt and trousers. And the police, they were not allowed into the house. Obviously, they need to search things because that's protocol of what they do, apparently. And then it was just the way that she screamed at us hide there. That all she wanted was her baby.
Police will do whatever they can to be as empathetic as possible in the circumstances. And most SIOs speak to the family through the FLO, the family liaison officer. You're treading a very fine line. You want to catch the perpetrators, but you have to respect the wishes of the family.
Police find nothing to lead them to Imani's killer.
The police investigated, because that's part of what their job is. Because otherwise, if they don't do that, when it comes to trial, The defence can say the victim of this was a criminal. I can say categorically, Imani wasn't a criminal at all. He's certainly not a member of any gang.
Obviously, there's nothing to find because nothing to do with Imani, because he was innocent amongst all this.
Imani was part of a close-knit family.
That was his favourite time, of all the family being together. So we're quite a close family. So we do everything together, really. He wanted us always to have a party. He loved all the new babies that came into the family. All the pictures you always see Imani cradling a baby. And then when he had his first little baby sister, he was definitely the big brother. And he would carry her everywhere and do everything with her. He adored her. Very, very protective.
Imani aspired to work as a mentor to children with additional needs, volunteering twice a week at a local youth centre.
It's amazing with children. He's just had a soft side of him. He had Asperger's and ADHD, and he was dyslexic. So he did struggle when he was younger. I've always been proud of Imani, because he's had obstacles, obviously, over the years with his trying to cope with his own disability. But yeah, always proud of Mons.
In need of a forensic breakthrough, CSIs examine the bullets and casings for unique markings.
I'm now going to look at the end of the magnifying glass.
The other things that you can find on cartridge cases and potentially on bullets are tool marks. You can also get some markings on the outside of the cartridge case and striation marks on the bullet as well. Now, striation marks have individual characteristics. That means there's something really quite unique about the markings on it. You may be able then to relate it back to a specific firearm.
You're looking for any marks or damage or anything unusual on the end of this bullet casing. So you can see where the bullet's been fired. You can also see that there's a little bit of damage which may be replicated from the firing pin of the gun.
They can be uploaded onto the database, which in the UK we use IBIS, which would potentially allow us to see if the perpetrator has used that weapon at any other instance in the last 10 or more years.
Using 3D microscopy, investigators photograph the bullets and casings and upload them to IBIS to compare their unique marks against other known firearm incidents. But the system draws a blank.
Sometimes it's just irretrievable, so you end up almost with a ghost gun that you can't ascertain where it's originated from.
It can be really frustrating in an investigation if you have a really important piece of evidence and it's not matched on the database. You've got a killer on the loose that might strike again, and you've got no way of identifying who that person is.
A Section 60 order is put in place across the entirety of Islington and Camden, granting police additional stop and search powers.
Police are concerned that there might be repercussions in the area or there might be a further targeted attack. Having a Section 60 will help the police in hopefully trying to identify if anyone has any weapons. If we find a weapon and potentially find a gun, we might be able to link that back to our deceased.
They would have put out extra patrols around the estate, local officers speaking to members of the public to reassure them.
Having lived in Islington his whole life, Imani's senseless death rocks the local community.
Everyone was devastated. Everyone knew Imani from the area. Yeah, we had a lot of support.
He was part of a really close-knit community, so it can be extremely traumatic, not only for the family members, but also for his friends and neighbours to see what's happened.
It hurts when a member of the community gets killed. Incidents like this send shockwaves through every single household. You've got many parents that are thinking, could this be my child next?
Oh, everyone was amazing, and everybody just came forward as much information that they could give to the police.
When the police commence a homicide investigation, they look at intelligence that they can glean from speaking to the local community, because a lot of people will come forward. People don't like people getting murdered on their doorsteps.
Witnesses report seeing several men flee the scene, including one on a motorbike. But with no clues to why Imani was targeted, the team needs a forensic breakthrough. At the park, searchers continue for the gun.
There's obviously that element of danger because if there's a potential firearm on scene, it may need to be made safe.
You'd always look under vehicles, in bushes, on the ground. You could also consider getting a police dog that specialises in searching for weapons.
They'll do a search of ways in and ways out in case someone's discarded a gun or they may have hidden it.
Finding nothing at ground level, they exhaust all avenues in search of a much-needed lead.
They'll even look in guttering around because people have been known to throw stuff onto roofs.
Drains are searched by police search teams. Searching a drain can be a particularly messy job because there's a lot of debris that falls down into a drain. So finding an item in a drain can be covered in quite a lot of gunk, which then can obviously be detrimental to any fingerprints or DNA evidence that might be on that item.
If necessary, they'll call the local council to suck up any water that might have been there, and lo and behold, they found a mobile phone.
This wasn't covered in dirt. That tended to suggest that phones have been placed there quite recently. The question is that phone linked to this incident?
This is another piece of the jigsaw.
It'd be quite interesting to see if there's any fingerprints on this phone. The powder that I'm going to use on this surface, because it's smooth and shiny, is aluminium powder. Aluminium powder is really fine. It's the go-to powder of most CSIs. Okay. And there's some very clear fingerprints on that surface. Right, so we use some lifting tape to get the marks off here. And then you just slowly rub the tape down onto the surface and then pull it off. And then the fingerprint is actually on this tape.
Digital experts also trace the phone's owner. It's found to be registered to a local man, 35-year-old Demetrius Kyriakou. A police database check reveals that just 2 hours before Imani's murder, a crime report was filed after a witness saw Kyriakou being violently robbed by masked men.
He had been robbed in Carville Street, which isn't that far away from the scene. The phones in the drain were the proceeds of that robbery.
It kind of makes you think that they may well be linked.
I learned something as a young detective, and that is presume nothing, check everything.
Police head to Kyriakou's address. He tells them the men also stole his Rolex watch.
Police asked if he knew the people that had done it, and he said he didn't. He refused to really assist the police with any sort of investigation and said he didn't want to know. Now, that's suspicious in itself. Most law-abiding people want to know. He becomes a person of interest.
Police searching for the killer of aspiring youth worker Imani Alaway-Muir are profiling Demetrius Kyriakou after recovering his stolen phone inside a drain at the crime scene. Intelligence finds he has a history of supplying large amounts of cannabis and cocaine to drug dealers.
We're talking about inner city London and areas within London where you may see activity as it relates to drug dealing. You may see some activity where individuals are in beef and conflict with each other over territory, over postcodes.
Drug dealers get robbed by other people because they know they have access to cash and drugs, and that's exactly what I think happened in this case. Clearly, there's some sort of gangland feud here.
With the stolen phone their only remaining lead from the crime scene, detectives need to determine if Kyriakou is linked to Imani's murder. But as investigations begin, the lack of any solid leads sees some media draw their own conclusions.
It was put out there that a man in the morning was robbed of his Rolex and kind of betrayed that this young black boy had done it and he's got shot.
Headlines which are so far from the facts, it's unbelievable. He's on his way home. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He's an upstanding young man, and they've sullied his reputation in front of his family when they're trying to remember him in the best possible light. It's unforgivable.
They were very upset about it. It was kind of betrayed that he deserves it because he shouldn't have robbed, the watch. He had nothing to do with anything.
The impact of sensational stories really just exacerbates this idea about race. That when we have these conversations, typical scenario, young black male, victim of gun violence, it's very easy for people to point the finger and make the assumption that the young black male that was the victim was involved in things.
He didn't do the robbery because he was coming home from my end to North London, and the police could track the whole of his journey over and where he'd went that day because of CCTV around the area. It's always young black boys and their lives don't matter. We kept trying to get it changed, that Imani's got nothing to do with it.
But police are convinced Kyriakou's involved. He's lied about having his Rolex stolen to cover up that they took his drugs and his phone with the numbers of his buyers.
They can't really get to the root of the murder. There's lots of circumstantial evidence pointing to him as a person of interest.
With Kyriakou refusing to talk, investigators look into his movements at the time of Imani's murder.
Digital forensics these days is one of the main lines of inquiry in any major incident.
You leave a footprint wherever you go.
Once you have a mobile phone and have the cell site data, you can map out their network.
But it's not overnight. It will take maybe weeks. It's no point just having data. You need to be able to understand it and interpret it.
Police also hunt down Kyriakou's attackers. They were driving a black BMW.
It's really important for police to try and track that vehicle. There may be vital forensic evidence inside that vehicle that will help with the police investigation.
Using ANPR and CCTV, police follow the car's movements after the robbery.
That car turned out to be stolen.
The car travels south towards the Westbourne estate and parks up close to the murder scene.
Now, call me old-fashioned, but I don't believe in coincidences. Police treated that as a secondary murder scene.
The vehicle is always taken away to a garage so that it can be examined in a clean, dry environment. This helps to preserve any evidence. You check the boot of the vehicle, the glove box, any hiding places within that car. The CSIs will be looking for any fingerprint and DNA evidence. You could also be looking for potential fibre evidence on the vehicle car seats. The fact that the vehicle's been stolen means that there's a huge amount of evidence in that vehicle that may not be related to any incident at all. There may be a lot of innocent person's fingerprints and DNA and detritus within that car that's not relevant to any police investigation.
8 weeks on from his tragic murder, 200 people come together to celebrate Imani's life.
It was a beautiful send-off for Imani, a very sad send-off. Everyone came to the house and we had Imani's body brought out outside the flat from the carriage, and so everyone could be around and see him and touch him.
There were hundreds of people there from the local community, from the local estate, friends and family. This had far-reaching consequence.
We all marched from there to the local church and had the service, and then we went up to the cemetery, knowing that he's never coming back. It's like the final, terrible, heartbreaking. Just miss him every day. Still talk to him like he's still coming home. My blessed grandson.
Determined to get justice for Imani's family, suspicions about Dimitrios Kyriakou's involvement are growing. Digital experts combing through his phone data have found that in the seconds after he was robbed, he contacted several associates. One of his cocaine suppliers, James Nicholson, Darren Dredge, a cannabis dealer, Matthew Hardy, a lower-ranking foot soldier, and Nathaniel Reese, who has 35 prior drugs and burglary convictions. Over the next hour, the men gather at Kyriakou's address on the 6 acres estate.
They all met up, which is supported by digital communications from their mobile phones. They're all cell-sited in the same area.
Suspecting they're plotting something, experts make a sinister discovery. At 2:34 p.m., Kyriakou uses an app to locate his stolen phone.
He's turned on Find My Phone, tracked his own phone.
Using the app, the men zero in on the play area on the Westbourne estate.
Now we have a possible motive. The motive being revenge for a robbery.
Revenge attacks are simple. You hit me, I hit you. You disrespect me, I disrespect you back. We're talking about status here. It's the fact that an individual feels that he's shamed. They want to go back at the quickest moment to make individuals know that they can't be messed with and this can't happen again. And then it becomes a spiral of violence.
Having located his stolen phone, 15 minutes later, the men are on the move. Hardy, Dredge and Nicholson head towards the Westbourne estate, parking up near to where the stolen phone has been located. Reese and Kyriakou travel in the opposite direction, towards Stroud Green. Police suspect it's here they picked up the gun from an associate. Minutes later, phone data shows Reese and Kyriakou are back on the road.
ANPR shows them going into the Westbourne estate. CCTV footage supports that.
With Dredge, Hardy and Nicholson in position as lookouts, Imani enters the play area. Seconds later, Kyriakou and Reese park up on Bride Street. As Imani stops to watch the football, the men see the black car that was used in the robbery.
See the black BMW, put two and two together.
The scouts spot the men who committed the robbery in the play area. On the warpath, Kyriakou and Reese head down the alleyway. They see Imani and wrongly assume he's involved.
They shoot an innocent boy. It was a young man in the wrong place at the wrong time who had his life cruelly taken from him.
That was very difficult, knowing Imani was a mistaken identity and he was innocent, and all this for nothing. And his life mattered, especially to us.
It was very rare to hear innocent people getting caught up in a crossfire as it relates to gangs. But let's think about it in terms of proximity. When those beef and conflicts spill out into the wider community, that's when we start to see the ripple effect of violence. And unfortunately, the young man, Imani, that was there at that particular time felt the brute force of the anger that came from those individuals.
Absolutely devastating, particularly someone so young. It's an absolute travesty. Having somebody open fire where there's potentially a high number of children around really does show something about the perpetrator in question, their morals and their lack of care and compassion for others.
The 5 men are arrested on suspicion of murder.
The digital evidence putting them on the spot is pretty damning.
The suspects were in constant communication with each other prior to and post the offence occurring.
That is a conspiracy in as much that it was a common goal to commit that murder.
All deny having anything to do with Imani's murder. They claim they only met up to check Kyriakou was okay after being robbed, before going out to deal drugs. the team still needs evidence that proves beyond doubt that they arrived at the scene armed and intending to kill.
Murder investigations go up to the day the prosecution ends. You can still dig up evidence.
Having so many offenders on a case like this is a huge amount of evidence. There's a huge amount of cross-referencing between the offenders, who did what, when did they do it, corroborating their stories, any mobile phone downloads. So having more than one offender at a crime scene, that's a big job.
Police secure warrants to search the men's addresses. At Kyriakou's, several mobile phones are seized.
When digital forensics interpret one of the mobile phones, they found an image in the photographs.
It's a huge piece of evidence, and if you put it all together, it's starting to show that he was the catalyst for all this. Motives are a number of things, can be monetary, power, territory, and in this case, it's revenge. They found a photograph of what they believed to be the murder weapon. He'd taken a photograph of it.
Having a forensic scientist look at that photograph would help to identify if that was potentially the gun that was used.
The photograph does appear to be a semi-automatic 9mm caliber pistol, and the cartridge retrieved from the incident was also a 9mm and has the right sort of firing pin mark.
And the firearms expert actually said, as did the pathologist, having seen the gunshot wounds, that is likely the type of gun that would have been used to shoot Imani.
It must be quite frustrating in this investigation to never find the weapon, and almost finding a photograph is second best.
You imagine that evidence in front of a jury, it is very powerful.
Kyriakou insists the gun isn't his and wasn't used to kill Imani. But in an ID parade, witnesses from the scene identify Nathaniel Reese as the angry man with the black gun.
This is an individual that has been living a particular lifestyle for many, many years and would have built a particular reputation. These behaviors of criminality, violence, would have desensitized him. Empathy and sympathy towards victims would have been something that would have been pushed to the side.
All 5 men are charged with murder.
We had a march to the Old Bailey, screaming out justice for Imani, because we wanted to make sure the perpetrators all got caught and would go away. That was our aim and our fight for Imani. The trial was very long-winded. I had to be there every day to know exactly what happened. It was hard to face them. Some days you didn't want to look at them, but you needed to see them and stare them in the eye and let them know your pain.
The prosecution sets out the evidence showing how Imani's tragic death unfolded.
The echoing of the bullets around the courtroom. I could hear Keith breathing and try and hold back her tears and all that. It's very difficult. We were told that she has to move herself because she might sway the jury by being upset. You weren't allowed to show any emotions, so it made you very angry.
The men continue to claim they're not Imani's killers. But on the second day of the trial, Reese makes a dramatic U-turn, pleading guilty to pulling the trigger.
I've only ever had one murderer plead guilty in my entire career, and I've investigated loads of murders. He was so disgusted knowing he shot an innocent young boy.
Kyriakou's defense team insists he didn't know he was armed. He claims the photo on his phone is of a firearm belonging to Reese. But the data shows it was taken 3 weeks before Imani's murder, when Reese wasn't with him.
So to the jury you can prove that he's a liar, that his account or his narrative can't be relied upon.
Offenders are aware of DNA and fingerprints. You cannot live in this world now without leaving some kind of digital footprint.
Kyriakou is also found guilty of Imani's murder.
His motive for this was revenge and hate. Little doubt about that at all. In fact, the judge alluded to that in his summing up.
Dredge, Hardy and Nicholson are convicted of manslaughter. Ahead of sentencing, Keitha describes the catastrophic impact of losing Imani.
The day you took Imani, you not only destroyed his life, but that of 4 children. My children lost their brother, but also lost their mum. A mum who was once filled with such happiness and joy, and now to just see me crying, sad, lost, and yearning for my son. My little girl thinks it's a normal thing to do, to be in a cemetery every day, as she was only 1 when Imani was murdered. The pain we feel is unimaginable. Imani was the glue to our family and loved by so many. We did not choose this path of darkness and sorrow, where every cell in your body aches. The 4th of July will haunt me for the rest of my life. Every time I close my eyes, all I see is my son's lifeless body covered in blood. The panic, fear, and pain my poor child must have gone through. I know by the route he had run, he was trying to make his way home to me. Until you've lost a child, you'll never understand how hard and painful a trial is to sit through and remain composed. To see graphic photos of my son and hear of his final moments and expected to show no emotion, when every day I was just screaming inside. Having to hear my son's name being called by so many people who had never even met him or knew him. To them, he was just another murder case, just another job to attend. Imani is my baby. I feel none of the 8 defendants showed any remorse or compassion for Imani, myself, or his family. Despite them knowing Imani was not responsible for any part of the robbery that took place. Losing Imani has affected me in so many ways as a woman, a mother, and a human being. Most days I barely recognize myself. My son should be here. Imani loved life so much. I will never get to see my son have children, a wife, a career. I feel as though I've been handed the life sentence, not them. Imani will be forever missed, loved and remembered, and our hearts will be forever broken until we are back with our precious Imani. I love you, my son.
Following Keitha's powerful statement, Rees asks for no reduction to his sentence for pleading guilty.
I think he realised what an evil thing he had actually done.
They actually felt Keitha's pain.
Rees and Kyriakou are sentenced to 33 and 31 years for murder and supplying drugs. Dredge and Hardy are found guilty of manslaughter for acting as scouts. They're sentenced to 10 and 7.5 years. Nicholson is sentenced to 13 years for getting rid of the gun.
Everyone loved Imani. Everyone. You can see the people that come up to the cemetery on special occasions. We all have our birthdays up there. We always cut a cake with Imani. So he's part of it. And when a new baby's born, the baby's taken up there, have a picture with him, you know, because that's what he always wanted was a child. He really wanted to be a father. And he got robbed of that. Robbed of everything that he wanted to do. Wanted to travel, pass his driving test. But his main thing was to be a father. Just miss him every day. We talk about him all the time at home. What laughs we used to have, and joy we had with him. That's Imani, beautiful soul.